When Greg Popovich's name surfaced as a potential target of Brooklyn's coaching search, most people, especially Spurs fans, laughed it off as wishful thinking on the part of the ambitious Nets. But as foreign as it may seem, we shouldn't be so quick to dismiss the idea of Pop manning the sidelines somewhere other than San Antonio, where it doesn't look like one of the greatest coaches in basketball history will get to coach a contender again anytime soon. An entire generation of NBA fans never knew a world where the San Antonio Spurs weren't a playoff team. But now, with the franchise missing the playoffs for the first time since 1997, it's worth asking whether another generation might come of age without ever knowing the Spurs as a relevant contender. So how did we get here? And where do the Spurs and Pop go now? As much credit as the Spurs deserve for the way the organization conducted itself for the better part of a quarter century, the glaring fact that often gets overlooked when discussing San Antonio's dynasty is that it was only possible because of transcendent Hall of Fame type superstars. Yes, Popovich is among the greatest and most adaptable tacticians we've ever seen in all of sports. The Spurs did fill out their rosters immaculately, and the organization's scouting and development departments were second to none for a long time. But you can have that type of structure and still come up short if you don't have the luxury of top-end talent. Fawn over and try to replicate the Spurs' unique culture all you want. It still boils down to stars.
David Robinson with the slam back. My goodness.
The Spurs were a perennial contender with David Robinson, one of the best big men of all time. The one year they bottomed out, when Robinson missed the majority of the 96-97 season due to injury, Pop came down from the front office and took over as head coach. The Spurs won the draft lottery and selected another one of the greatest bigs ever.
With the first pick in the 1997 NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Tim Duncan from Wake Forest University.
Trading for Kawhi Leonard in the middle of the 2011 draft's first round was obviously a masterstroke, and Leonard blossomed into the type of Hall of Fame alpha any great team needs. But whether you blame Kawhi or the team for the way that relationship soured in the span of a year, the fact of the matter is this: botching the Leonard situation and then trading him to Toronto for an underwhelming package of DeMar DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl, and a draft pick, with Danny Green and cash going the other way to Toronto, left the Spurs without one of those transcendent championship-type superstars for the first time since the pre-Robinson years. And wouldn't you know it, without one of those guys around, the Spurs suddenly started looking pretty damn average. And the team's lack of top-end talent certainly isn't lost on Pop.
How do you like the energy level of your team thus far?
Energy level's great. Worst shots in the history of basketball.
In the couple of years since that Kawhi trade, that very average Spurs team has also fallen behind the times in the league they used to set the trends for. In what most executives often refer to as a copycat league, it was the Spurs who rival pretenders looked to as the model. Now we live in an age where the Spurs tried to build a 2020 offense in the middle of the three-point revolution around mid-range maestros DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. It's a problem when the team your shot chart most closely resembles is the New York freaking Knicks. The Spurs' fall from grace should serve as a jarring reminder that no franchise, no team, and no fan base should feel invincible. For the longest time, we all operated under the assumption San Antonio could do no wrong. But at the end of the day, they were still just one of 30 NBA teams. The Spurs culture might have insulated them from some of the buffoonery teams like the aforementioned Knicks are subjected to.
That's not right. Well, maybe it is right.
But just like the players themselves, every team bleeds. Every team is living on the edge of razor-thin margins that make them susceptible to long-term futility at every turn. some are just structured enough to be hanging on by thicker threads. There's no shame in the Spurs now looking up at the rest of the NBA after 20 plus years as standard bearers. But it is time to accept and acknowledge that the team is a long ways away from getting back to the top. DeRozan and Aldridge are on the wrong side of 30 and only have 1 year left at most on their respective contracts. DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Keldon Johnson, and Lonnie Walker are all promising youngsters with two-way potential, but none of them are franchise cornerstones, and the Spurs are unlikely to find one with the 11th pick in an underwhelming 2020 draft. And without that star talent or playoff base to work from anymore, good luck convincing the NBA's biggest stars to choose one of the league's smallest markets in free agency. We're talking about a team much closer to needing to hit the reset button than they are to playoff contention. Popovich landing in Brooklyn or elsewhere might even benefit the Spurs long term if they can get draft pick compensation out of it the same way the Celtics did when Doc Rivers went to the Clippers. Popovich is 71 years old. Maybe his 5 rings, 1,200 plus wins, and his job as head coach of Team USA is enough at this point. And it's not worth it to him to start over again somewhere else. Plus, there's no NBA coach capable of doing more with less. And Pop hasn't actually given us any indications that he's eyeing the exit. Who could blame the legend for feeling like his work as an NBA coach is just about done? But who could blame him for wanting one more kick at the championship can either? He's not getting that in San Antonio. So whether it's in Brooklyn with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, or in some other NBA destination where a rising contender in need of Pop's infinite wisdom resides, don't discount the idea of Greg Popovich finishing his sparkling career elsewhere. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button.